Flames torch at least 6 apartment units. NCC News reporter Karl Winter joins us live from the Clarendon Heights apartments.
There is still smoke in the air here hours after the fire began. Syracuse Fire responded to the 1500 building of the complex just after noon today. Chief of Fire Michael Mons describes the scene they faced.
They had fires showing on the second and third floor of the building right behind me. I'm in the back of the building. Fire was shooting out the back 40 feet in the air out of it.
The fire is out now, but Mons is wary about more of the roof of the building collapsing. Clarendon Heights resident Piper Cooper says at least 6 units are destroyed.
And about half of the apartments are actually scorched. But what I heard is that there is a lot of smoke damage. But
structure damage is limited to the 1500 block, but the entire complex is without power right now. Chief Mons says all residents were evacuated safely. An investigation into the fire's cause is ongoing. Ivy Ridge Road through the complex remains closed at this time. In East Syracuse, Karl Winter, NCC News.
Central New York Congressmember Claudia Tenney wants Pro Football Hall of Fame enshrinement for the trainer who gave life-saving CPR to Damar Hamlin. WAER's Karl Winter tells us how the former SU football trainer turned Buffalo Bills assistant trainer could get some acknowledgement from the museum.
Doctors say it was the quick action by Bills trainer Denny Kellington that saved the life of safety Damar Hamlin. Kellington spent 12 years with SU Athletics before joining the NFL. In a C-SPAN video, Representative Tenney said Kellington's heroic actions should earn him a spot in football history.
I support the calls for the National Football League to make Denny Kellington the first athletic trainer to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame Chief Communications and Content Officer Rich DeRozier says inductees are mostly retired athletes. This year's finalists include retired New York Jets cornerback Darrelle Revis and former Chicago Bears return man Devin Hester. But DeRozier says they do have a category to honor people like Kellington.
And basically, contributor is a catch-all category for anybody who isn't a modern era player, senior player, or coach.
Unlike players, contributors do not have to be retired to get into the hall.
You know, Bob Kraft has been nominated several times in that category. Jerry Jones is a good one. Jerry Jones was elected in that category and is still an active owner.
Though Patriots owner Kraft, Cowboys owner Jones, and even a referee are in the hall, no athletic trainer has ever been inducted. DeRozier says it's possible that Kellington could be nominated for next year's class, but the Hall of Fame's newly established Awards of Excellence would be more likely.
I suspect that the trainers group will do something at its own convention this year to recognize the Bills staff in particular.
Recipients would be on display at the museum in Ohio. The ceremony is in June. Karl Winter, WAER News.
East Syracuse resident Mike Andrianos wears a full face mask when he rides his Harley Sportster motorcycle. He says drivers need to keep their eyes peeled during riding season.
It's a lot harder to spot a motorcyclist on a highway, especially around other vehicles like big trucks and things like that.
Motorcyclists die in crashes at a higher rate than other drivers. Andrianos and State Police Trooper Jack Keller say protective equipment is critical for riders.
One recent study shows that fatality rates in motorcycle crashes are increasing by almost 50%. And they're also stating that there's helmet use is decreasing.
Keller says the fatality numbers in CNY are up in 2022 after rising statewide last year. He and Andrianos share the same message.
It's like the look twice, save a life.
Look twice to save a life.
Karl Winter, NCC News.
Syracuse's new school superintendent is looking back on his own experiences growing up in the city to help chart his path forward leading the district. WAER's Karl Winter explains how newly selected Superintendent Anthony Davis plans to tackle some of the biggest issues facing today's students.
Davis grew up on the city's south side in what he says was an extremely poor household. He says poverty and violence are things still facing the city now.
That we got to get rid of some of the violence that we're dealing with, and along with, a lot of other things that are happening throughout the city. So if we don't do those things first, we can't really get to the academic piece.
Davis says these outside factors can hurt students inside the classroom. When serving as interim superintendent, he held a series of town hall-style conversations to better identify how to address student challenges. One of the first things that came up was improving attendance.
And this has to be student by student. This isn't a systematic thing. It's more, we have 25 students in this particular building that's not showing up. Go find them. Find out what's going on and what can we do to impact that.
Davis says he hopes focusing on that personal connection will result in academic achievement. He says one of his top goals is boosting the district's test scores.
But to get there, we got a lot of work to do up front. So I need the district to be respected. And I really want us to get to a place where we have realtors and everybody touting our district as a draw to the area.
Davis signed on to the job for at least the next 3 years. He came out of a 3-year retirement to serve as interim for about 6 months before the school board gave him the permanent role this week. Karl Winter, WAER News.
47-year-old Jimmy Monto was born in Syracuse's Eastwood neighborhood. Monto told the Common Council in a public interview on Friday that he would be the city's first openly gay councilor.
It's not lost on me.
Monto pleaded guilty for misdemeanor tax fraud a decade ago and says it's important for him not to run from his past.
So I could redeem myself not only in the eyes of everybody around me, but in my own eyes.
Monto already won the Democratic nomination for the November election, but he or Alfonso Davis could be chosen to serve for the rest of 2022. Monto will continue working with LGBTQ+ groups either way.
I wear this progress flag on my lapel, and I plan to do so for every single council meeting if I am lucky enough to sit on that body.
City Clerk Patricia McBride says if the council chooses to fill the seat, the choice will be announced at the August 22nd meeting. Karl Winter, NCC News.
Bills player Damar Hamlin's on-field accident is shining a light on the rare but potentially fatal commotio cordis injury. WAER's Karl Winter tells us how the risk is also a concern in youth sports.
The routine hit that sent Bills safety Hamlin dropping to the ground made David Maloney worried about his sons. Maloney says one plays AAA hockey in Syracuse, and the Monday Night Football incident had him worried for his safety.
First thing that I did when the Damar Hamlin thing went down is I ran downstairs, looked in his hockey bag, and his shoulder pads have a really nice protection over his heart.
He says he is willing to spend extra money for top-of-the-line protective gear.
Don't mess around. Check your kids. Make sure things fit, because you just never know, man.
The Hamlin incident brought attention to blunt chest trauma in sports. But a medical journal article 30 years ago called cardiac concussion, or commotio cordis, a major cause of traumatic death in youth sports, specifically baseball. Syracuse Little League safety officer Ernie Capriotti says the hit that sent Hamlin to the ground has him looking to get more resources ahead of the league's upcoming season. Bills trainers relied on CPR training and an automated external defibrillator, or AED, to save Hamlin's life. But Capriotti says the league doesn't have one.
We've never had anything that was significant in terms of trauma or anything like that. But then again, that's no reason to be unprepared. So given everything that's been going on, not just in youth sports, it's something that we're looking into doing for the 2023 season.
Capriotti says they don't ask coaches to be CPR certified, like the Bills' professional trainers, which is also required of high school coaches. But he says the league provides basic medical instruction.
I always have a doctor or a nurse come to our safety meeting and show us basic first aid practices. One of them is CPR, another is mouth to mouth.
Little League signups are in February. Karl Winter, WAER News.
Our region reported a 12% COVID positivity rate yesterday and 7% over the past week. Eastside resident Audrey McConnell knows multiple people sick with the virus.
It's just blowing up a lot faster than I think people are realizing it.
The majority of the new cases are a contagious strain called BA.5. Oswego County senior public health educator Diane Oldenburg says these cases are mostly mild, for now.
As case counts creep up, typically it takes a couple weeks to see that spike in hospitalizations.
A rise in hospitalizations would cause the CDC to recommend restrictions like indoor public masking. McConnell is worried by the possibility.
Definitely something to be concerned about.
County health departments tell residents to remain up to date on COVID vaccinations. Karl Winter, NCC News.
Rain, snow, wind gusts, and a flash freeze are all in the forecast for central New York this holiday weekend. WAER's Karl Winter explains how the hazardous weather may affect travel.
The National Weather Service forecasts temperatures to drop by double digits heading into Friday evening. National Weather Service meteorologist Mark Pellerito says a double-digit drop will transform a rainstorm into a snowstorm.
Anything that will be sopping wet at that time, which, after a bunch of rain will be the case, as well as snow melt, will freeze over, and roads will rapidly become icy with some rain changing to snow on top of that.
Pellerito says central and western New York will see snow continue to fall on Christmas Eve.
If you're heading on, say, the New York Thruway by Buffalo and points south of there, or if you're heading north of Syracuse, especially to the east of Lake Ontario, there could be some very heavy lake effect snows with some very gusty winds blowing and drifting snow. Some pretty bad conditions to travel there.
Pellerito says temperatures will be bitterly cold and windy with wind chills in the single digits.
Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, it is going to be a completely different world. It's going to be an Arctic wonderland.
Pellerito says people who have to travel on the roads should pack a kit with food, water, and warm clothing.
Always monitor the latest weather forecasts and make sure if it turns out that you slip off into a ditch somewhere, you're not going to be the only one. There are going to be a lot of people who need help at the same time.
He says emergency response teams may be delayed in the conditions. Karl Winter, WAER News.
Onondaga County legislators unanimously approved a plan to keep farmland farmland. WAER's Karl Winter says the legislature voted to update a plan to incentivize farming in the face of deep-pocket developers looking for open land.
The new County Agriculture and Farmland Protection Plan is designed to protect the county's best soil, especially when a farmer decides to retire and make big money selling to a developer. Farmer Brian Reeves says an individual farmer's quick payday could add up and leave the region without enough land to meet food needs.
The attention span of a lot of people isn't very long. And I've said it over and over that if we let the public forget the fact that food security is national security, then that's on us. That's our fault.
The new Farm Protection Plan supports a state program that gives retiring farmers more money if they sell their land to other farmers instead of to developers. Agriculture is a $6 billion industry in New York State, and Onondaga County plays a key role. Reeves sits on the county's Agriculture and Farmland Protection Board to make sure the farming remains strong in the region.
There's a lot more land that would like to be protected. There's a lot more development pressure than the current funding addresses. So we're trying to fight that battle. We're making some progress, but is there more progress to be made? Yes, a lot.
The Syracuse Onondaga County Planning Agency's Megan Costa says the protection plan will help keep the ag community intact.
If it's not the farmers' children, who's it going to be? And we need to sort of work more to identify who those folks are going to be and really nurture that.
Costa says the plan also guides cities to create ordinances that do not over-regulate farms.
So we've spent a lot of time working with municipalities through this plan to make sure that the regulations they have in place aren't overstepping, really making sure that they're supportive of the ag economy and farmers being able to do what they need to be stewards of their land.
If the county legislature approves the plan, it will then move to the State Department of Agriculture and Markets for final approval. Karl Winter, WAER News.